My coworker spent 3 years harassing me for being a single mom, and then she locked my 5-year-old daughter in a dark closet at my office. I got her arrested. I'm a single mom, and I worked as an account manager at a marketing firm. I'd been there 3 years when Lindsay joined our team. From day one she made it clear she thought mothers didn't belong at work. She'd roll her eyes when I left at 5 to pick up my daughter Sophie from daycare, and she'd make little comments about how having kids was a choice that shouldn't affect the team. It didn't stop at comments. In my first presentation after she joined, she interrupted and asked if I'd prepared it myself or if I'd been too busy with mommy duties. Our manager, Aaron, just laughed awkwardly and moved on. Lindsay started telling clients I might not be available because of childcare issues, even though I had never missed a deadline. She scheduled important meetings at 4:45 on purpose, knowing daycare pickup was at 5. When I asked to dial in, she'd say physical presence shows commitment. One time Sophie got sick at school and I had to leave early. Lindsay sent an email to the entire team saying some people used their kids as excuses to skip work. Then she went even further. She made an actual spreadsheet tracking every time I left early or came in late for anything related to Sophie, and she presented it during our quarterly review like it was some brilliant productivity report. Aaron said it showed initiative. After that, Lindsay started leaving parenting articles on my desk about how working mothers damage their kids. She told interns I only got promoted because the company needed diversity quotas for single moms. She'd take loud personal calls about her amazing child-free vacations while staring at me. And she even complained to Aaron that the company wasted benefits on dependents and should give that money as bonuses to employees without kids. Then came Take Your Child to Work Day. The company encouraged everyone to participate. Sophie was 5 and so excited to see my office. She brought her little backpack with coloring books and sat quietly at my desk while I worked. Lindsay walked by, leaned down, and told my daughter that her mommy was selfish for making her sit in an office instead of playing with friends. Sophie asked what selfish meant, and Lindsay told her it meant caring more about money than your child. I told Lindsay to stop. She said she was just being honest. At lunch I took Sophie to the break room to eat. When we came back, Lindsay had moved my files around like she was trying to make it look like I was being unproductive. She complained to Aaron that Sophie was disruptive, even though my daughter hadn't made a sound. Aaron suggested maybe Sophie should sit somewhere else. So I put Sophie in a small conference room with her coloring books and told her I'd be right outside. The door was glass, I could see her. I went to the printer for 2 minutes to grab some reports. When I came back, Sophie was gone. Her backpack was there, her books open, but she wasn't in the room. I ran through the office calling her name. Reception hadn't seen her leave. I checked the bathrooms, empty. My heart started pounding so hard I could barely think. Then I heard tiny knocking from the supply closet down the hall. That door was locked from the outside. I opened it, and Sophie fell out crying. She was shaking and terrified. She told me a lady said there were toys inside, led her down the hallway, and then shut the door. She'd been in the dark for 10 minutes, screaming, but no one heard because that hallway was empty. I knew immediately it was Lindsay. I carried Sophie back to the main office so everyone could see her sobbing. Lindsay sat at her desk typing like nothing happened. I asked her, "Did you lock my daughter in the closet?" She called it a serious accusation and said she'd been at her desk the whole time. Sophie pointed at her and said, "That's the lady." Lindsay smirked and said kids make things up for attention, and maybe Sophie locked herself in by accident. Aaron walked over and Lindsay instantly started crying, saying I was creating a hostile work environment by accusing her of something horrible. Aaron told me to take Sophie home and said we'd sort it out tomorrow. That night, I went back to the office with building security. I asked them to check the keycard logs for the supply closet. The system showed Lindsay's keycard accessed it twice, once right when Sophie disappeared, and once right before I found her. Then security pulled the hallway footage. The video showed everything. Lindsay walked up to Sophie in the conference room, bent down to talk to her, then led my child by the hand down the hallway. She swiped her keycard at the supply closet, opened the door, pointed inside like she was showing Sophie something interesting, and the second my baby stepped in, Lindsay pulled the door shut and walked away. The security guard burned 2 copies right there, one for me, one for police. I called 911 with shaking hands and told them someone had locked my 5-year-old in a dark closet in my office building. My daughter was safe now, and I had video proof of who did it. Officers arrived within half an hour. They watched the footage and I saw their faces change as they realized this wasn't office drama. One of them said it was criminal confinement and child endangerment. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. Absolutely. They told me to wait in the lobby with Sophie while they went upstairs. I held her while she fell asleep against my shoulder, her cheeks still blotchy from crying, and I just kept thinking about how alone and scared she'd been in the dark. 15 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and the officers walked out with Lindsay in handcuffs. She was red-faced, screaming that it was a misunderstanding, yelling that I was lying, that she would never hurt a child. People in the lobby stopped and stared as they led her outside. As she passed me, she screamed that I was going to regret this. Then they put her in the back of the police car. My manager came running down looking panicked, asking what was happening. I showed him the footage on my phone. He watched it and went pale. He tried to mumble something about maybe there being an explanation. I told him there was no explanation that made locking a 5-year-old in a closet okay, and that he should call the company's lawyer, because they'd ignored 3 years of complaints and now it was going to blow up in their face. The next morning a detective called and asked me to come in for a formal statement and bring any evidence of past harassment. I gathered everything, the spreadsheet Lindsay made, the emails where she told clients I was unreliable, the messages about me using my kid as an excuse, the names of people who heard her comments. The detective said it showed a clear pattern. Lindsay didn't make a mistake. She had been targeting me and my daughter for a long time. HR called me after that and asked for a meeting. I told them I wanted a lawyer present. A friend of mine, Lisa, came with me. HR admitted they had documentation of my complaints, but management had decided they weren't serious enough. Lisa looked them in the eye and asked if locking a child in a closet was serious enough now. Suddenly everything changed. They put my manager on administrative leave. They offered me paid time off. They agreed to cover therapy for Sophie. And Lisa drafted an agreement that the company would not retaliate against me for pressing charges or speaking during investigations. Lindsay's arraignment happened soon after. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched her stand in front of a judge. Her lawyer tried to claim she didn't intend harm and didn't realize the door would lock. But the prosecutor pointed out the keycard evidence. Lindsay knew that door needed a keycard to open from the outside, which meant she knew Sophie would be trapped. Lindsay pleaded not guilty at first. Bail was set high, and a hearing date followed. Then the story leaked. A local news station ran a piece about workplace harassment that ended with a child being locked in a closet. They named our company. My phone blew up. Former employees reached out with their own stories about Lindsay targeting working mothers. The company's internal investigation turned into a firestorm. Multiple women came forward. It became obvious my manager had dismissed everything, and sometimes even praised Lindsay for her dedication. He got fired. The company rolled out new harassment policies and manager training. They stopped scheduling important meetings late in the day. They created real reporting channels that didn't force employees to go through the same manager who was ignoring them. Meanwhile, Sophie struggled. She had nightmares, wouldn't sleep alone, cried if I left the room. A child psychologist explained she was having an acute stress response, and it could take months. So we did weekly therapy. Slowly, she improved. The nightmares happened less. She started sleeping through the night again. She began talking about it like, the mean lady made a bad choice and can't hurt me anymore. Lindsay's lawyer later asked about a plea deal. The prosecutor was willing to reduce charges to avoid a trial, probation, anger management, community service, and a permanent restraining order keeping her away from me and Sophie. Part of me wanted jail. But the thought of Sophie testifying made me sick. I accepted the deal to protect my daughter from more trauma. In court, Lindsay read a rehearsed apology. The judge didn't look impressed. He accepted the plea but added hundreds of hours of community service with child safety organizations, and warned her that violating the restraining order would send her straight to jail. 6 weeks later, the company settled with me. They covered all of Sophie's therapy, paid legal fees, and compensated me for 3 years of a hostile work environment. They even provided a strong reference letter and agreed not to contest unemployment if I ever left. I stayed because I actually liked my work and leadership changed. They promoted me, gave me a raise, and moved me to a healthier team. And for a while, it felt like it was finally over. Until one Tuesday morning, Sophie's daycare director called. Lindsay had shown up asking to see my daughter. The staff recognized her from the photos I'd provided when the restraining order was issued. They told her to leave or they'd call police. Lindsay refused. She sat in her car watching the playground like she was waiting for Sophie to appear. They called the police. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes. Lindsay was arrested again, this time for violating the restraining order. At the hearing, her lawyer tried to argue she wanted closure. The judge cut him off. He said court orders aren't suggestions, especially when children are involved. He sentenced her to 60 days in jail. That was the first time I felt my lungs fully open again. A year later, Sophie started kindergarten like nothing could break her. She slept in her own bed. The nightmares were gone. Therapy ended. At work, I was being considered for a director-level role, not because I begged for fairness, but because I'd proven I could handle pressure and protect what mattered. Lindsay lost everything she built with cruelty. And I went home with my daughter safe in my arms.